It's Thursday, March the 2nd. Sick Pinochet flies home. He feels better already. PlayStation 2 launched. More blisters for teenagers. Blair says, help the needy. Me first, says fat failure. Please welcome the man who loves a voluntary servicing, Mr. Iain Lee.
Calm down, come on. Hello and welcome to the 11 o'clock show. Now, Tony Blair wants us all to do voluntary service. And despite my calm, cool TV persona, I've actually done a lot of unpaid community work. In fact, I've only got 11 hours left to go. Still appealing against that conviction, by the way, ladies and gentlemen. That spaniel was definitely dead when I bought it. And as for incriminating evidence, who doesn't keep genitals in the fridge? I don't know. As I was saying, Tony wants us all to spend a day doing voluntary work. John Prescott's helping the infirm by combining his two great passions, meals and wheels. Fantastic. He's a big fat man. Gazza wanted to help at a refuge for battered wives, until someone told him battered wives don't come with chips. He's a big fat man. And Posh Spice is already helping out at a soup kitchen. Every night she cries herself to sleep with, those poor hungry souls, I'll never be as thin as them. But she's trying. But to be honest, I don't really believe in charity. I gave a homeless bloke 10 pence for a cup of tea once. Bastard never got it for me. Just sat there shivering under some cardboard and whimpering. I don't know. But I remember the last sizable donation I made. It was at Battersea Dogs Home. They, of course, asked me to clean it up immediately. The police arrived and, well, my lawyers advised me not to make any further comment. But enough charity chit-chat. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Miss Daisy Donovan. Then could be yours. Take your
Good
pick.
evening. Iain, I've actually done my bit like Blair, and I've spent the day bringing joy to the sick. I visited poor old General Pinochet and did what little I could to make the old man smile. I tied myself to a radiator and had his dog chew my legs off.
Very sweet of you, Daisy.
Yeah, it was nice. And before you ask, I knew you were going to. Here's what's coming up on tonight's show.
I'll be finding out if Britain really has become a nation of thickos.
With the Brit Awards tomorrow, Ben Miller is here to fill us in on the nominees and backstage sleaze. And our News Avenger meets Oxford's answer to Linford Christie, Sir Roger Bannister. But now it's time for tonight's headlines.
Tonight's top stories.
Gerry Adams and Martin McGuinness are said to be very excited about attending a St Patrick's Day party at the White House. It should be a good night as they promise to leave Clinton legless.
There was surprise this morning as the Big Breakfast unveiled two standing presenters for Johnny and Lisa.
New revelations have emerged about Edward VIII, revealing he had links to a sinister German right-wing organisation. Then he left the royal family and moved abroad.
As the race for London Mayor intensifies, Frank Dobson looks for dirt in Livingston's This Is Your Life file.
Embarrassment for the government today as secret cameras caught Britain's most prolific car vandal in action.
Webwise men can now book a vasectomy on the internet. The site is at www.chop-ouchmymecock.com.
There are ugly scenes at the official opening of the Millennium Wheel as the nation's ghost train workers took to the streets protesting against a loss of earnings.
Paula Yates was said to be livid when she discovered a stalker in her kitchen. She said that she was furious as she'd been waiting in the bedroom for him for over 2 hours.
There was further embarrassment for the government today when undercover reporters discovered Mo Molam's greenhouse.
And there was amazement today as archaeologists discovered evidence that mammoths used contraception.
And those were the headlines.
According to a survey published today, 50% of the people asked can't recognise the English flag. Now, if we extrapolate this percentage nationwide, allowing for regional fluctuations and marginal error, it means that either me or Daisy is a thicko. Which one do you think it is, Daisy?
Eric?
Spot on. Now here's my report on Thick Britain.
In the old days, we used to be a nation of intellectuals. Nowadays, we're as thick as shit. I come into Bristol to find out why. Talk about intelligence. Do you think that society is more intelligent now than it used to be?
Remind me what society is?
Society, it's all the people. All the people. Is it more? Are all the people more intelligent now than they used to be?
I'm not sure exactly.
Should there be a tax on the stupid?
Well, they're stupid, aren't.
The lottery, I suppose, is sort of a stupid tax, isn't it? I bet I can make you say 19. Do you think I can do that? Without hitting you in the ghoulies or sucking you off or anything. What's 40 plus 40?
It's not
What's 40 plus 40?
80.
Yeah. What's 80 plus 10?
90.
Ah, I got you to say it.
You said 90.
Ah, I got you to say it then. I am the champion. You are rubbish. Can you help me out for just 1 second? What you need to do, that bucket has got... Can you just hold this stick for a second? Push it up. You've got to push it up. OK, that bucket is now completely full of water. If you move, that's going to fall on you. So there we have it. Well, we may not be a nation of intellectuals, at least we're not all as stupid as this bloke. This has been Iain Lee, the 11 o'clock show, Bristol. Good luck, mate. That's full of water. Enjoy it.
Japan leads in the world in self-centred forms of entertainment. The Walkman, music for yourself, karaoke, singing for yourself, and PlayStation, a substitute for playing with yourself.
PlayStation 2 was launched in Japan today, but is it any good? Here's our sneak preview of the new games.
Big Football, the most realistic football game yet. As well as controls to pass and shoot, there are buttons for moaning until you get a pay rise, wearing your wife's pants and beating up the missus while letting off a fire extinguisher.
There's a new driving game that swaps the high-speed thrills and spills of the arcade for the gritty realism of a tour around Coventry's red light district, Curb Crawler 2000.
Soap fans will love the new Walford Combat, the world's first beat-em-up based entirely in Albert Square.
Dr. Leg wins.
And finally, Victoria Beckham is jumping on the bandwagon with Posh Spice Tennis, where the characters are perfect replicas of the pop queen herself.
And that was our guide to the pixelated nightmare world of PlayStation 2.
Like me, you get a strange tingle whenever you see an ugly, fat, bigoted man talking bollocks, then you'll share my joy at welcoming our next guest.
Or if, like me, you think Ricky Gervais is a prick, you'll go and put the kettle on. Ladies and gentlemen, Ricky Gervais. Look at me getting cheers. Oh, I'm getting cheers on the telly.
Shut us up there. All right, Donovan.
Yeah, all right.
I'm going to talk about that thing you were going on about, Blair's volunteer scheme, where he wants everyone to do 1 day's volunteer work a year. Yeah?
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I do.
He's doing it. Do you know what he's doing? He's being an assistant teacher for a day. That's not a deep end, isn't it? I want to see him doing proper voluntary work, yeah? In an old people's home or something. I want to see him emptying colostomy bags or pushing up prolapses. I want to see him giving a bed bath to a 90-year-old woman and her suddenly go, just there, Tony, yeah, go on. Word of advice, though, if you do any volunteer work with the elderly, don't make the same mistake I did. I went along to volunteer to an old people's home in Reading, yeah? And I had to see the woman in charge. Woman. Short hair, Doc Martens, I said nothing. I said, I'll be honest, Tubby. I only want to work with the sickest, oldest, richest ones on their way out. Do you know what I mean? She went, I don't know what you mean, no. I said, well, I want ones that maybe, you know, haven't got any next of kin. Yeah. And I don't want to wash with my hand, I just want to hose them down at a distance with cold water. She said, we don't need any volunteers. Do you know, I went, you fishmonger, you're going to keep me... It's a euphemism for kipper liquor. So, knowing that I'd blown the interview, I stormed out saying, I'll have this place investigated, and I did. What I did, I moved my granddad in there undercover, right? He didn't want to go, he missed my nan, but I couldn't afford both of them. And he eventually, he just pined away and died. And the fat leser got the house. My nan had to move into a home. But, you know, it proved my point, she was on the take, and good luck to her, because I sort of respect that more than someone who washes old people for no reason at all. You know what I mean? And she had to do things against her nature, like wank off my granddad,
Right, we'll
obviously.
stop you there, Gervais. Please don't applaud. Sit still and keep quiet. Let's move on with the show. That's the end of part 1. Still to come in part 2, Alex Lowe reports on Surrey's oldest living torturer, General Pinochet.
And comedian Ben Miller separates the wheat from the Pratts at this year's Brit Awards. See you after the break.
Welcome back to the 11 o'clock show on Thursday, the 2nd of March. Later on, a news Avenger gives Roger Bannister a run for his money. But first, here's another look at today's headlines.
Government says grass is good for you, but straw's still a twat.
Clinton says no to arms. I'm a leg man myself.
Archer to star in West End musical. He is the Lion King.
Jack Straw announced today that everyone's favourite brain-dead murderer, General Pinochet, will not face extradition charges.
Here's Alex Lowe with his report.
Jack Straw this morning removed the last legal barrier preventing the Chilean dictator General Augusto Pinochet from returning home. The news shocked many, but was greeted with delight by those whom the general has helped over the years. Jack Straw's decision will come as a great relief to the general, who's had to endure 17 months' arrest in the hellish conditions of the exclusive Wentworth estate. Pinochet's flight to Chile left earlier today, and he seemed to be happy and untroubled as he went through customs. Jack Straw's decision to release the harmless, bloodthirsty, mental despot was based on a medical report that states that the general's in no condition to stand trial because he has a form of brain damage that means that, 1, he may become clinically depressed by the idea of anyone receiving a fair trial. 2, he can't remember anything about the years he was in charge of Chile, a condition known as convenientitis. And 3, oh, look at him. Oh, leave him alone. It's like my granddad. He couldn't have hurt anyone. Bless. As head of state, Pinochet was responsible for some of the worst acts of stadium torture since Simple Minds' Belfast Child Tour. But he is unlikely to be charged because he conveniently changed the law back in the days when he could remember his atrocities. On matters regarding rounding up innocent people and torturing them in football stadiums, no one can now be charged if they have white hair and a moustache, they wear a big general's cap, their name rhymes with Pinochet. This is Alex Lowe for the 11 o'clock show, Wentworth.
Daisy, please tell us about tonight's guest. I'm desperate to know.
Last time he was here, he spilt the beans on the All Saints. This time he's here to talk Spice Girls, Ricky Martin and Steps. He's an actor, comedian and for tonight only, our musical expert on tomorrow's Brit Awards. Please welcome Ben Miller.
Thank you. Hi, Ben. Thanks for coming along. Nice to see you. Lovely to be here. Got a big telly for you tonight. Now, Ben, you wowed us once before. Remember wowing us with your exclusive showbiz stories?
Yeah.
Which someone made up, we found out afterwards. And your famous mates. Now, you're back to tell us what's going to happen at the Brits tomorrow night. This year's Brits are apparently the biggest ever.
They are. It's a swashbuckling show this year. There's a lot of stuff planned. 5, because I've got all the inside info.
Your mate's 5.
Yeah. 5, they tell me. 5 are doing a little spot with Brian May. They're going to do We Will Rock You. Fantastic, you know.
Sounds shit.
I know, yeah. I know. I suppose, yeah. I think he just got sick of Roger Deakin beating him at 3-dimensional chess. I think he wanted somebody slightly easier to play in the backstage. That's actually a backstage conversation I'd quite like to hear, actually. 5 and Brian May hanging out. That'd be quite interesting.
Can we go through some of the categories? First, so we've got Best Female, and the nominees are MELC, GERI, HALLIWELL, GABRIELLE, Beverly Knight and Beth Alton.
Now, there's been a lot of speculation about what Jerry's going to wear and what her stage act is going to involve. Now, you obviously know.
That's right. No, there's a story. There's a story, apparently. Now, there's a story that she was going to perform. It's rumoured she was going to get some dancers, you know, sort of dress up as the other members of the Spice Girls and come on and mime to the Spice Girls tracks.
Controversial.
But that would just be like being in the Spice Girls,
yeah.
I think. So she's decided instead she's going to come on. She's making a clitorical entrance through through some 50-foot inflatable women's legs. So I think we're going to see a lot of fun. I think we're going to see those legs ending up at the after-show party. Chris Evans possibly trying to get them into a taxi, taking them home. Some good shots for the paparazzi there.
OK, let's look at the Best Pop Act category. The nominations are... 5. GERI Halliwell. Anne Lee. Who? Martine McCutcheon. S Club 7 and Steps.
Yeah.
Who do you think's going to win?
I think it's going to... I mean, 5 really are the sort of the Lou Reed of that lot, aren't they? I think they're really out there. they're really kind of out there on the edge, aren't they? I think they're really going to get everyone's votes. You know, because it's time that we really put something alternative back into pop, and they're doing that on
Who
that
the
list.
hell is Anne Lee?
Yeah, she's actually a friend of mine.
It's
Just some money from school.
OK, now to the more heavyweight categories. Best International Female.
Yeah.
The nominees are... Macy Gray. Britney Spears, Jennifer Lopez, Whitney Houston and Mary J. Blige. Who's your tip for this category?
It's got to be the Marge Simpson of soul, hasn't it? It's got to be Macy Gray. And apparently, Macy Gray is apparently going to perform that... Do you know that song, I Try?
Yeah.
She's going to have a go at doing that, apparently.
Oh, really?
Which I think is... Apparently she's going to sing that one, which I think is quite brave.
That is.
I've not heard that for about 20 minutes.
I know, yeah.
That'd be nice.
Yeah. I mean, you know, I think it's like...
She could have done a lot of her other famous songs.
She could have done, yeah. She could have done a duet of Unbelievable with the EMF as well.
That I'd like to see.
That would have been fun, but no, she's going for I Try, so, you know, new material.
Let's have a look at the boys in Best International Male. The nominees are... Ricky Martin, Eminem, Will Smith, Moby and Beck.
Yeah,
So-
Wiki Wah.
That... Ricky Wawa, there's a choice there, isn't there?
I just think
the
it's-
obvious choice is
He's
Ricky
got me.
Martin, Will Smith.
Hasn't he? It's got to be Will, hasn't it? Because I mean, I do really love, seriously, the idea that in rap you do have the whole spectrum from people on the corner in Compton with 2 decks, you know, throwing some sounds down, carjacking to wah wah wiki wah wah. That's the same category, apparently.
Every year after the Brits, there's one story that grabs the headlines, and we've had to take a guess about what it'll be this year.
Yeah.
Can we expect to see any of the following headlines on Saturday? Shania breaks chastity with goat.
Is that likely to happen, do you think?
I think it's happening all the time.
OK, the next one is Britney fires ping-pong balls at crowd.
That's the video I would watch.
Ladies and gentlemen,
You are cheeky.
Get out of here.
Ben Miller.
How do you get away with it? And for more on the story of General Pinochet evading trial, we'll go over live now to Alex Lowe in Wentworth. Alex, what's the latest?
Well, Ian, Lady Thatcher has said how delighted she is that Pinochet has left the country. She said, this town's only big enough for one mental, old, torturing dictator.
And what news is there of the General's physical and mental state?
Well, General Pinochet responded to the allegations that his brain damage is faked by issuing this statement. I'm mad, me, honest. Ooh, verp, nabba, nagniti. Maggie!
Thanks very much, Alex Lowe.
Yeah, thanks, Ian.
There's good and bad in everything. For every Jerry, there's a Tom. For every Richard, there's a Judy. And for every David Jason, there's a lanky, boring twat.
But what's the good and bad in this week's news? Well, it's time to find out in our regular feature, Good News, Bad News.
Good news.
Duncan Goodhue saved a Labour MP's life after he collapsed with a heart attack. Bad news.
When the MP regained consciousness, he thought he was being abducted by Mekons.
Bad news.
The government are blowing £250,000 providing the unemployed with free mobile phones. Good news.
They're hands-free units so the workshite can carry on wanking and thieving.
Good news.
For EastEnders, Sonia. She's about to get a shag from Martin Fowler. Bad news.
For Martin Fowler, he's got to shag a Joe Pasquale lookalike.
Bad news.
The DeMarco family are to get the chop in EastEnders. Good news.
At least Rosa will now have the time to get her Dickie Davis hair sorted out.
Good Good news.
Austrian Nazi Jörg Haider has quit as leader of the Freedom Party. Bad news.
He's set to take over as host of the Generation Game. Bad news.
David Hasselhoff is to be killed off in Baywatch. Good news.
He drowns very, very slowly.
Good news.
Viagra is to be developed as a nasal spray. Bad news.
Fuck knows.
And that was this week's Good News, Bad News.
Livingston, Dobson, Molam, Jackson. What's the real story behind Roger Bannister running the 4-minute mile?
The News Avenger has her own tough take on the news and goes head-to-head with Sir Roger to wring the truth out of him. Errol, that child can see. Get me a blind child with a stump. What makes me the best? Don't answer. Effectively, I'm a news pimp. The news is my bitch. Sometimes you've got to knock her around a bit to make her work for you. So, let's smack this bitch up. Roll DLT. You are?
Sir Roger Bannister.
And your date, remember, was?
May 1954, when I was the first person to run a sub-4-minute mile.
Do you want to talk about it?
Of course.
OK, let's talk. If I ask you, were you confident that it could be done? You say to me, it only takes 4 minutes, girl, to run a mile.
I'm not going to call you a girl. No way.
A lady?
No. I will give an answer to that.
OK. Were you confident that it could be done?
It only takes 4 minutes to
Girl.
run a mile.
To run a mile?
Only takes 4 minutes.
Girl. Not every story is about life or death, which is a shame. If it feels a little flat, it's my job to pump it back up. Obviously, your life must have been in grave danger. In terms of East meets West, you know, communism versus capitalism. And the triads.
Triads.
Apparently the Chinese...
The Chinese?
The Chinese Ho Si Yin from Peking, otherwise known as the Peking duck, was actually trying to work right against you.
There's no Chinese
No triads.
runner.
I thought the triads were very anti you getting that race.
No. I mean, all this is totally incorrect.
They may have the greatest story in the world, but that doesn't make them the greatest storyteller. That's my brilliance. I provide the missing link. Tell me about the motions of the last lap.
The 3/4 of a mile had been passed in 3 minutes, and Chris Chataway was leading. And I followed him until 250 yards from the end, and then I overtook him and kept going that speed until the finish.
Perfect.
I didn't.
That's nearly all from tonight's show.
Just time to bring you the shock news that Margaret Thatcher is to join the cast of Neighbours as Harold Bishop's new wife.
But finally, Ricky Gervais is here testing the boundaries of taste and decency, and we do apologise in advance. Good night.
Good night.
Do you think it's right to show gratuitous sex pre-watershed on television?
No.
What if it's on a wildlife programme like two lions having sex?
I think if it's handled with tact, probably yes. But I think you have to consider children saying, "Mummy, Daddy, what's this about?" And if it's handled with tact and it's done in a natural way, I think it's probably more acceptable, yes.
What if it looks like the lions are getting off on being filmed?
I think that's an unlikely scenario.
What if it's made obvious that they've only just met, like it's just sex, and the male lion's just walked up to her and she's let him.
Well, they do tend to handle things somewhat differently in the animal world, and I think if that's explained...
You don't think it makes her a slut? It makes her a slut in Reading, I don't know. Where are you from?
I'm not from Reading.